evening, everyone. Can I please have a motion and a second to reconvene the public meeting?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for our servicemen and women?
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will the district clerk please call the roll?
Marisol Allen, President.
Here.
April Natelli, Vice President.
Present.
Jackie DiLorenzo, Trustee.
Present.
Sarah Parisi, Trustee. Melissa Torgrosa, Trustee.
Present.
Michael Abraham, Student Board Member.
Here.
Dr. Joseph Senmore, Superintendent.
Present.
Bob Hauser, Assistant Sup for Business and Operations.
Present.
Reza Kolahifer, Assistant Sup for Admin Personnel.
Top of the evening to everyone.
Christina Poppy, Assistant Sup for Curriculum and Instruction.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the March 10, March 16, and March 19, 2026 meetings?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have a special presentation tonight. We have a special guest from LICAB in the house. I will pass the floor to Dr. Pisani, and she will introduce Mr. Joseph Salamani.
On? Okay, wonderful. Okay, good evening. Thank you to the Board of Education Cabinet for the opportunity to welcome Mr. Joseph Salamoni from the Long Island Coalition Against Bullying this evening. The purpose of the LICAB presentation tonight is to highlight the measurable progress we have achieved together through the partnership focusing on bullying prevention. We are grateful for LICAB's ongoing commitment to our school community, which has helped to align our practices and develop customized programs that have contributed to a reduction of bullying across the district. Through our strategic bullying prevention action plan, we remain dedicated to fostering a culture of connection in Connecticut and advocating for the well-being of every student. We believe that together we can better protect and educate our students. At this time, I'm proud to introduce Mr. Joseph Salamoni, who is a Long Island native from Deer Park and is the founder and executive director from the Long Island Coalition Against Bullying, a position he's held since 2013, a victim of bullying himself, which some of us can relate to as being in school, elementary school, or middle school, or high school, or even as an adult. Mr. Salamoni's vision is simple. It's to reach as many children and families experiencing bullying as possible. His driving force is to create an environment that keeps an emphasis on the importance of the issue, all while demonstrating financial diligence and respect with the public's generous contributions. Under Mr. Salamoni's leadership, LICAB has quickly emerged as a pioneer organization fiercely advocating for children and families impacted by bullying and proudly working with many Long Island school districts and organizations to maintain and enhance their bullying prevention curriculums. Mr. Salamoni's drive and passion for this cause has enabled LICAB to effect change through efforts including government task forces and helping to spearhead passing important legislation for anti-bullying. Mr. Salamoni feels that supporting the community is paramount and supports other charitable events such as children with special health care needs as well as cancer research. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to Mr. Salamoni.
Thank you, Dr. Pisani. Dr. Senamore, Ms. Mallon, members of the board, cabinet, and the community, I appreciate the opportunity to share some of our collaborative efforts with you all tonight. The slides that you have before you and up on the screen are in much greater detail for your review, but I'm only going to take some high-level points from each for the purpose of being mindful of time. With that in mind, I do want to make sure that I touch upon three things, just giving you an overview about who the organization is, our wraparound programming offered to the communities at large across the island, including Connecticut families, which comes at no cost to the district or to the families themselves, and lastly, some of the efforts of our collaboration together. So, I forgot, I got the clicker. All right, look at that. Okay, so, what or who, as some say, is LICAB? The work we do, as Dr. Pisani alluded to, for me is deeply personal, largely stemming from my personal experiences being relentlessly bullied, that by the time I reached the 9th grade led me to develop a plan for suicide. Through the unknowing intercession of a teacher, I ended up abandoning that plan, although many years later, after I witnessed an act of cruelty towards somebody with special needs, recalling my own experiences, I said that more needed to be done. So born from that point in 2013, became our organization based on empathy, education, and real support systems aimed at answering three questions. The first, how do you find kids that are impacted by bullying? The second is, how do we help them once we found them? And lastly, how do you prevent it from happening again? So over the course of those years, our impact over the course of the last 13 years has allowed us to provide numerous support to thousands of families. We have delivered over $10,000 annually in scholarships every year. We've partnered with organizations like Northwell, PM Pediatrics, Allied Physicians Group. In the last 5 years since our partnership with schools began, we now work with over 35 districts and have worked with and reached over 35,000 students. As Dr. Pisani alluded to, we have worked closely with both state and local governments. Most recently, my personal appointment by Governor Hochul to the New York State Cyberbullying Task Force, as well as our very public advocacy for the cell phone ban in public schools. Our program is several layers. First begins with advocacy. We offer a one-on-one hotline to any member of the community, to families and including schools. Resilience, where we offer and connect kids to mental health and confidence building resources. The education piece I'm going to touch on in a second, so I'm skipping that for a moment, and then working with the community through youth boards, scholarships, and various partnerships that I mentioned. The statistics here I'm going to skip over. I'll allow you to kind of go through those at your leisure. The pillars of partnership, as we call them, within the educational program, last school year, took us to over 35 buildings in 35 districts, and last year alone allowed us to work directly with over 11,000 kids, kindergarten through 12th grade. We provide continuing education for students, faculty, staff, and parents. We've gotten involved in supplemental district initiatives like task forces, committees, and extracurricular clubs. Community partnership to ensure that our commitment extends beyond the final bell in things like wellness fairs and school-based community activities. And accessing the resources I mentioned earlier to students and families. And every single thing I just mentioned is currently something that we are doing here in Connecticut. When we look at just a quick high-level scope of the issue, I'm not going to go into tremendous detail, but I included some of our proprietary data from across the island to stress a few points to you all. The first, Connecticut is not unique in the issues it faces with regards to bullying. The second, as of this school year, after surveying over 4,000 students grades 6 through 12, 54% of the kids that we've met with this year have claimed they have been feeling bullied, and they are at higher rates amongst those who identify as female and non-binary. Thirdly, the reminder that bullying is often historically underreported. And lastly, understanding that by some estimates, by the time a student turns 18, they will have spent 80% of their awake hours outside of the school environment, which reminds us that schools are just a singular piece of a larger puzzle. However, Connecticut, recognizing all of that, the role it does play is doing the work. And that's where I'll transition now to kind of talk about the stuff we have been doing. So when it comes to our partnership in action, It actually really is a pinnacle example of the work we do when we truly partner with a district. So starting with things like annual Dignity Act coordination training for the coordinators in each building, which not only does it remind them of the policy built around DASA, but it also helps streamline processes, policy, and protocol across the district. District-wide collaboration with membership on both the district-wide Bullying Prevention Task Force and the Mental Health Advisory Committee. Curriculum development. This year we worked with the elementary PPS staff to build an additional push-in lesson with focus on K through 2 on kindness and the golden rule. And lastly, with grades 3 through 5, specifically on cyberbullying. And in 2026 and 2027, the intention is to collaborate on a K through 12 curriculum that specifically aligns with the district's existing EASL initiatives. As well as, lastly, taking the Caring Leaders program and marrying that to a leadership program we have outside as a third party and marrying them together to continue to award and recognize the outstanding things that kids are already doing in the district to demonstrate leadership. And speaking of leadership, the thing we are most proud of this school year is the launch of the first cohort of the LICAB Connect DASA Ambassadors. That's a high school-based team at the moment where 24 students were put together following the model of other successful student-led models within Connect to focus on 4 core spots: understanding bullying behavior, supporting peers within their own school environment, educating younger students, and driving cultural change. The students began their lower grade visits during Random Act of Kindness Week in February by visiting the third graders at John Pearl and have continued visits in other buildings coming up over the next several weeks. And to that end, we actually have 2 of those student ambassadors here with us this evening. And I just want to, on behalf of everybody here, tell you how incredibly proud of what you have already done and what you are going to continue to do. So with all that said, moving in a positive direction, is what is happening making an impact? There are 3 charts included in the presentation, and while they do note a sharp decrease in the data, this data was shared and evaluated both with the district-wide prevention bullying task force as well as their respective building level teams, which continue to build upon existing frameworks. Those frameworks have continued to allow us to build the Strategic Bullying Prevention Action Plan. I do have to stress, though, while data alone cannot tell a complete story, it can't be dismissed either. And that data does show that the work is working. And lastly, and in closing, a few anecdotals. The goal here is not perfection. It's progress through partnership. Bullying, in my estimation, and I think most rational people's estimation, will never completely be eradicated. When schools, families, and communities work together, though, we can create change. We know we won't always be able to solve every situation for every child, but we should never stop trying. For those who we are able to reach, support, and impact, it does make all the difference in the world. I stand here as personal testament to that. I am incredibly proud of the collaborative work that we have been able to do with the district and what we have accomplished, and I am looking forward to, and with excitement, the opportunity to continue to build on those successes. So I appreciate your time this evening. I know you have other agenda items to get to. Please know in the slide is also other contact information for me. I'm always available for any further questions, follow-up, and discussion, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Thank you for sharing with us. Does any members of the board have any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to know if you felt comfortable if either one of the students wanted to get up and speak and just tell us about the program, what they think of this program. You don't have to. Don't worry, I asked your mom first if I could do it.
Hi, my name is Lizzie Dione. I am a freshman at Connecticut High School, and we have been working to help the elementary school students have a better understanding of how bullying can turn up outside of school and inside of school, and how they can work to see the signs and help those around them. And they can also realize that there's a lot of cyberbullying in the world that we live in today, and they need to be careful with how they like perceive like others on social media and how they use the apps. They seem to like have a very good understanding of empathy and kindness, and they seemed very engaged in our discussion, and they were able to better like understand it, and I feel like they adapt to it very well.
Hi, my name is Sophie Jamrosic and I'm in 11th grade. I feel like our program is really helpful because starting at like the elementary school level, a lot of the kids can learn the skills that they can keep with them and move on, especially as they go into middle school and high school, where they're kind of faced with more situations where they have to make the right choices. So by knowing like from a young age that they have the ability to do what is right and to treat others with kindness, I think that it will also create more progress in the future because they themselves will be able to make the right choices.
Thank you so much. Both of you are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for what you do to promote anti-bullying in the district, Jackie.
Yeah, I definitely want to thank you, because I've been part of I'm part of the anti-bullying committee and mental health advisory council for many years. So I've seen this work in progress as it's become what it is now. And it is so important, the work that you do, you girls and the other students, because we can say all this, but we're the adults, the little ones say, and they don't really want to listen to us, but they listen to you guys. They do. And I think it's so important that you're setting that example and such important role models for them, because as you said, when they learn it at a young age, you give them those tools, it'll become second nature as they get older. And they will want to help. It kind of just spreads. That they'll be, they'll help maybe somebody else if they see them getting bullied. And I think it's so important, and I think over time we're going to see, just started, how important it's going to be and the impact. So thank you for being part of this, right from the beginning and helping to get this going. It's very important. And of course, thank you both. I've seen, a lot of growth, and I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
So I just want to say, you girls are really articulate, clearly get where it's coming from, which I really like. I do have a question, an overall question. So my concern is that the boys are less likely to go up and report any type of bullying. And also that blue line left me a little bit bewildered. And I get, you're right, there are studies and nothing's right on the money. But I know that there's a lot of cyberbullying going on. Within the schools, these kids know how to do it. They hide it within TikToks and things like that. It's really scary. And what I'm concerned about is that that's not because parents and because people can't find it, because it's legitimately they know how to hide it, right? But it seems to be all the kids know where to go, right? Or someone snaps it and then sends it, and takes a picture of the snap. My thing is, I just feel like at any point is it addressed that there should be strong repercussions for this? Is that a part of this, or is that not under your purview? Because I am concerned about it. I think there needs to be a type of deterrent. I think it's great going in early and speaking to it, but I'm concerned about that.
Well, I think to your point, that's why we were very big on wanting to take the phones out of school in the first place, so that we mitigated some of that going on there. We were hearing countless stories of kids, getting their picture taken while they were in the changing rooms, in the locker rooms, posting things like that. So there was all that. You're absolutely right, though. They do know how to hide it. They are crafty enough. We have a cell phone ban. I was in the school today, and how many kids was I able to tell still had their phone on them? So that's one step. But part of that is that, they're mixing in the consequence of what happens when you do this, I think, is twofold. The consequence to you as a person, but trying to really stress the idea that, get to connect with the more softer side that everybody has in them, and understand that why would you want to do that to a person? And if you do it to a person, these things can happen. So we're trying not to, on the offset, focus so much on the negative, but we are definitely including the repercussions that you may have to experience if you do certain things. I think that's got to be part of the conversation, but not necessarily the core focus.
So my question is, where is it focused, that part, that aspect of this? Because I think a lot of the bullies are doing it because they know that it's very little, if any, repercussions. So that's my concern.
Yeah, the consequence piece would be through administration, certainly staff working in collaboration with administration. Their piece is on the prevention and the intervention, especially with the students directly impacted.
Yeah.
But to your point,
I just can say that it doesn't help if you bring a kid in the room with the bully.
Yeah, there has to be the consequence piece as well. Absolutely.
No, thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry,
No,
thanks.
thank
It was
you.
terrific.
Thank you so much. Everybody's favorite, Mr. Hauser, and our new budget presentation for this budget, expenditures, and budget.
Thank you. Good evening. I left copies somewhere in the back on a chair of this presentation, if anyone wants to get a copy before I begin. Okay. All right, so tonight we're going to take a look at the second draft of the proposed, all right, this is not final, the proposed 2026-27 school year budget, which will include both the revenues, the monies that we expect to come in, and the expenditures, which are the monies we expect to go out to sustain all the programs and services in the district. As we've done every presentation, we put up a simple calendar here to let everyone know where we started back in January. We started even earlier than that back in November and December. But this is the fifth time that we're doing a budget presentation. The first one back in the middle of January when we spoke about fiscal climate, and then you can see the other presentations. Each one of these presentations, when we do them and we're finished, we post them on the district website. So if anybody wants to view the presentation or a prior presentation or even a prior year's presentation, they're all up there. So on this calendar, you can see where we are today. I highlighted it in yellow. The second line that I highlighted is the New York State legislative budget. So back in January, the governor revealed her budget, which is called the executive proposed budget. And now what we're waiting for is the state assembly and the state legislature to agree on what the final state budget is going to be. So New York State operates on an April 1st to March 31st calendar year. School districts operate on a July 1 to a June 30th calendar year. So in order for the state to start their year, April 1st, they have to have an approved budget, and that budget includes state aid. So right now, we have yet to hear, and that's why I put a TBD, to be determined, because we should receive that number by March 31st. However, in the past, there have been times we haven't even heard our final state aid number till late in April and even into May. And I believe the last year we were almost at the budget vote when we hadn't even heard. So a lot of what we're doing right now, and that's why I mentioned the key word there, school aid estimate. We're just going off of what the governor has proposed, and that's certainly not the final number yet. We certainly hope it to be higher when we hear the final number. All right, and then we'll do another presentation April 14th. And then we're scheduled a little less than a month from now for the board to actually adopt the budget on April 21st. All right, and then a little less than a month after that, on May 19th is the actual public vote. Okay, so for approximately 15 school years now, we've been operating under what's called the New York State tax cap, and this comes under the New York State Comptroller's Office. I put the complex formula up there, and I certainly don't expect anybody to fully understand how it works, but this formula is provided to us by the Comptroller's Office, and it takes into account the prior year, the amount of money that we collected from the taxpayers from the prior year, and then it goes through some other numbers and factors, percentages, and for the most part at the bottom it tells us how much we are allowed to collect from the residents, residential homes and commercial businesses as well, how much money we are allowed to collect to support the school budget. So it's capped, and at the very bottom there's a number, $148,840,217. That is the max to the dollar, okay, which represents a 2.15% increase over the prior year. The Comptroller's Office wants to know, or they wanted to know by March 31st, by March 1st, not 31st, but March 1st, if any districts had intended to try to override this cap. So that's why the answer no is at the very bottom there. But districts certainly do have the option of trying to do what's called piercing that cap. One of the major differences with piercing the cap is instead of getting a simple 50% majority from the people who show up to vote and who are eligible to vote, who actually come to vote that night, instead of getting a 50% approval on the budget, you now have to get a supermajority, which is a 60% approval. So an extra 10% if a district decides to pierce the cap. So like I said, we answered that question as no. Okay, and I apologize, some of these numbers are small, but if you have the printout in front of you, you'll be able to see it a little better. So this page, even though it has a lot of numbers and a lot of dates on it, it's really a summary of where we stand right now from a budget perspective. So if you don't mind, I'll just start up at the top, which is the proposed expenditure budget. And if you carry that over to the green column, that's the school year we're currently in right now, all right? So that spending budget is $229,058,920. And if you carry it over one more column, that's the next year, that's the proposed budget. So that number, like I said before, is just a proposal, it's not final. But that number currently is $233,416,315. And that represents a $4,357,395 increase, which is a 1.9% spending increase. Okay, that's where we're at right now. The next set of numbers, which are called proposed revenues, all right, these are some of the revenue sources that we are proposing to use to pay for that $233 million spending number. So the first number I have up there is other miscellaneous revenue, and I'm in that column just to the right of the green where it says $10,249,944. There's about 18 items that make up that particular code. The bulk of them, I'll say, or I'll just specify a few of them. One of them is interest on our bank accounts. So as many of you have known, probably 6 months ago, we were receiving one interest rate on a bank account. Interest rates decreased, so we're not earning as much money on our bank accounts. Where that number is going to go the next 6 months, 9 months out is really anybody's guess. So we have to do our best to try to guess, how much money we're going to have in our bank accounts and try to guesstimate how much the interest rate is going to be starting July 1, in September, December, and all the way through the school year. Some other items that are in there are called pilot payments. So there are some commercial entities in the town of Islip, and in particular in the Connecticut School District, mainly in, like I said, commercial areas where the town of Islip Industrial Development Agency has given these businesses, many of them are new businesses that come in, they've given them, I'll call it a tax break for bringing new employees into the community to work, for improving the infrastructure of a building. When that happens and those entities that own that building are given that tax break, that portion of the building in a sense comes off the tax rolls, so we don't get a direct payment from the owner of the building to the town for the taxes. It may be a 10-year, what's called an abatement period. For 10 years, they don't have to pay a certain amount of real estate taxes on that particular building. But what the town does and the Industrial Development Agency does is they say to them, you know, you will make what's called a payment in lieu of taxes. It's called a pilot payment, which comes to the school district. So it's not a 100% tax break. It's a partial break, but we do get some monies, but not a lot. So that's just two examples, the interest and the pilot payments that come with the miscellaneous revenue. The next one is the appropriated fund balance, okay, also known as the unassigned fund balance. And in the parentheses there, I put the balance in that account as of June 30th, 2025. So that's when our books last closed and they were audited, and that's the amount of money that's sitting in that bucket is $8,288,081. So if you carry that all the way over to the right, to the column just to the right of the green, we are proposing to use $6,762,788 out of that bucket. All right, that represents a $1 million increase out of that appropriated fund balance. And I will say this, even though we are proposing to increase that by $1 million, we do have to be careful, because that happens to be an account, or if you want to imagine it as a bucket of money, that it has to be replenished. So the more we go into that bucket and appropriate money to pay for the budget, we have to do our due diligence that that bucket is somehow refilled the following year, or we'll get to a point where, you know, there's not enough money to continue appropriating to the budget. All right, the third line is called Workers' Compensation Reserve, and as of last June, the balance was $3,899,000. So the district is self-insured for workers' compensation. So if any employee in the district is injured on the job and they are awarded I'll say a medical claim they have, or they're actually awarded a sum of money for a permanent injury that they've sustained, we have to pay for that claim, or we have to pay for that award dollar for dollar ourselves. All right, we do have excess insurance over, I believe it's $600,000, but anything up to that amount, we're self-insured. So by law, we're only allowed to take the amount of money that we expect to expend. So the amount of money that's in the budget that we are proposing to spend on workers' comp, that's the maximum amount that we can take out of that budget. So later on, I'll get to the point where we are estimating our workers' comp claims to be $1,400,000. So that's the max that we can take out of that reserve. You cannot take monies out of that reserve to pay for anything else. It's dedicated specifically to workers' comp. All right, the next line going down, Employee Benefit Accrued Liability Reserve. We often refer to this as the EBLAR reserve, as you can see, and that is our most significant reserve at $9,957,000. 688, 668. So that represents every employee in the district, all of their accrued time. So as of June 30th, 2025, every employee who by contract is allowed to, I'll say, carry over or be entitled to sick time, vacation time, personal time, we have to place a value on that time, on that accrued time. So in the reserve, we have 9,957,668 sitting in there. However, if you carry it all the way over to that column we've been talking about, we're only expecting to pay out June of 2026. We're only expecting to pay out $980,000 to people who notify us that they're going to retire and be entitled to that personal time, sick time, vacation time. So once again, that reserve can only be used for that specific purpose, even though there's, over $9 million sitting in there. Next one, Employee Retirement System Reserve. That's often known as ERS. So that reserve, and I just want to be careful because I was asked a good question about this today. That reserve is for all non-instructional, non-administrator pensions, all right? So clerical unit, transportation unit, the grounds operations unit, all right? Most of those members, if not all of those members, belong to the employee retirement system, all right? And there's 5 different tiers, 1 through 6. I don't know if we have anybody anymore in tiers 1 or 2, but most of the employees are members of that retirement system. So the amount of money that's in that system, right, in our account, $4,098,707, that represents the district's share of the annual expense. So every employee who's in the employee retirement system, we get a bill from New York State Retirement System. Somewhere around 17% of each person's salary, we get a bill, and we literally have to write a check up to the state to pay for our cost of the retirement for those individual employees, okay? So it doesn't have anything to do with how much money an employee has set aside. It's strictly the district's share of the expense. This line I want to be a little careful about, because if you go all the way over and you see $2,435,839, that number, unfortunately, is nowhere near the actual expense. All right, it's much higher. But we are only proposing to allocate $2,435,839, and one of the reasons why it's smaller than what the actual expense is, we only have $4 million sitting in the reserve. So we have to be very careful. We can't allocate all of it if we don't feel we're going to get some of it back towards the end of the year to put back in that bucket. We won't have any money for the following year. So we're very careful how we allocate that. All right, and if you just go over to the 4th column next to it, you can see that we're actually proposing to decrease by $1 million the use of that reserve. So we have to be careful with these reserves that we're not too aggressive, and that come subsequent years we don't have the funds to use to offset the expense. All right, next one going down, Teachers Retirement System. That's also known as the TRS. So that would be for our instructional staff or our administrators. All right, there's only a smaller amount of $1.7 million that's sitting in that reserve right now. If you go to the green column, you can see the same amount of money, which is the current school year that we're in. I want to be careful to highlight this. So in the current school year, the budget was approved last May. We propose to use all of the money in that reserve to pay for the current school year's teacher's retirement expense. We're in a position right now where, in my opinion, in working with our auditors, we don't feel we're going to be able to replenish that reserve. all right? There's no law that says you have to replenish the reserve, but we're in a position where, as we look at each of these reserves, it's becoming more and more challenging to put the money back into the reserve to be able to use it next year. So I'm highlighting this reserve because this is one of the first times now we have a reserve, it's one of the newest reserves as well, that the reserve is going to be empty. It's going to have $0 in it as of the end of the school year. So therefore, if there's no money sitting in the reserve, in that bucket, there's no way to use it for the subsequent year. And that's why in that column to the right of the green, I just have a little mark in there. $0 are being used for that budget. Okay.
So sorry, just a
Go
quick
ahead.
question on that. So if there's no money in the reserve, where will you get the money from to pay out the teacher's retirement?
So great question. So in the budget, all right, in one of the 1,000 plus lines in our budget is a line item called Teachers Retirement System, and that's the actual expense. So what happens is we wind up, for the most part, going to the levy, all right, the amount of, which is the, a little further down, the amount to be raised by taxes, as one of the sources to pay for that. So it puts a little more pressure on us in the district when we start having to fund expenditures without being able to use reserves. Okay.
So that brings up what our taxpayers, they're gonna have to fund that, that's what you're saying, that's essentially where it's coming from? It's coming from the tax levy?
Yes, but like I said before, that's capped, right? We can only go to the taxpayers for the amount that the controller's office has set as the maximum. So as we talk about this, and these are great conversations, you start to see the pressures come from different angles when we have expenditures and we're losing sources of revenue to pay for them.
So, I have a lot of talking points, but I just want to point out, because we're talking about it now, as you said, I had written this up before, and you're actually going very detailed, which is great. That each district, we have the formula by New York State of the allowable tax levy. While districts may exceed this amount, we have historically chosen not to pierce the cap. As a taxpayer, I fully understand and appreciate that decision. I don't want to pay more than necessary either. However, by consistently staying at the cap, it's unrealistic to expect that we can maintain every program, every staff position, every class size as smaller than the norm. We can continue to rely heavily on our reserves to balance the budget. This is not sustainable because we're not going to be able to replenish. So last year, we were unable to replenish the reserves because we withdrew more than we generated in the surplus. This year alone, the few budget lines that Bob spoke about come to $7.7 million, making that recovery nearly impossible. We actually received a $1.9 million solar rebate that's going to help us replenish. 1.9 versus 7.7, that's a huge gap. So when we're saying we're going into our reserves, replenishing, if doing the numbers, we're not going to be able to replenish, no matter how the taxpayers' money comes in. So we're not going to be paying for it because there is a tax levy and we're not going to go over it. So something's going to have to give. And I just want everybody out there to know, because I know there's a lot of staff members here, that I personally, and I believe it's across the board, we don't want to see anyone lose their jobs. But if we're only pointing out that we can't save money if we can't save money through attrition and costs keep going up, we're going to have to make hard choices, and hard choices consist of programs, staffing, and other decisions. So all I'm saying is, when you look at the numbers, and that's what I really want us to do, and Bob, like I said, I'm really glad you're doing this, the reserves, we are moving them down and down and down, and eventually they won't be there. I personally don't want to be in a position where, I was speaking to one of our administrators recently, and when her kids were younger, they had to cut the entire business department. They had to cut the entire library, other entire programs throughout the district. I never want to see Connecticut in that state. I want us to always be proactive, not reactive.
A lot of these answers aren't jiving. I'm sorry. We were short on projected revenue. Okay, 1.8. The number that we're coming in at is astronomical. Before we cut anything, any programs or any jobs, yet again, I'm going to reiterate, line by line by line by line, because according to all the answers we're getting, okay, it's only 1.8 in the projected revenue. So it has to be overspending. Has to be. Simple as that. So before we even discuss that, that's what has to be done.
So I'm gonna jump in, and then Bob, you can go back, because I know in a couple of slides we talk about how we bridged the gap, and to all the points that are being made here. And I'll start with Ms. Parisi's. If you want to just go ahead 2 slides, and then we'll go backwards since we're having this conversation. Go ahead one more slide, one more, and then we'll go back and let you catch up. To Ms. Parisi's point, continue to go line by line, the 1,000+ codes to keep. And just and since the last meeting alone, we've been able to keep digging away at that budget gap. So that is absolutely a priority that we will continue to do. One of the points that was made up here is we're looking at open positions, whether they're due to retirements, resignations, whatever the case may be, and seeing what we can do with those open positions, because there's not currently an employee that's occupying that position, to see if that's an area that can be taken advantage of. And then, to everybody's point up here, the absolute last resort, which there is the potential of, is the accessing of staff, including various types of positions, administrative and instructional areas. That is everyone's last resort. Everyone's last resort as we try to bridge that revenue expenditure gap. So since this conversation started, I wanted to get to that slide, but then I'll let you go up if there's more questions.
Yeah, so since we are having this conversation, I am going to go into where I do agree, and, we have discussed this with the board, Sarah, that we have some overspending. So, if you look at our budget, our overtime, in my opinion, is astronomical. Our overtime spending is too high. Our policy requires pre-approval for overtime, yet it appears we're not being very strict enough on that. So if we think about this, if we get to keep positions and not have the overtime, and I understand that there's particular units in our district that have to have overtime, due to the fact that, buildings and grounds, it's inevitable, the weather, other things, transportation, that we have different sports, activities, everything else like that. But then we have other areas within our district that overtime should not be in the 100,000 mark. And we really have to look at this. We have a foreign language program that is costing us right now on the budget line combined $267,000. This is a lunch program that teachers push in 2 to 3 days a week for 20 minutes during the kids' lunch hour, but they are actually have to get their lunch, sit down. By the time they sit down, it's about 15 minutes of instruction time for 2 to maybe 3 days a week. Now, I fully support early foreign language exposure, but we must ask whether spending nearly $268,000 on a program with such limited instructional time is the best use of our district funds. We say, it's at my job we always say, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is this program, the best we can? Should we remodel? Should we, reimagine this program? Or do we need to cut this program in order to find a more meaningful, value-added program to bring these resources to? When we talk about special ed, and the fact that you're saying there's increases and the money going out, money coming in. Yes, we get a percentage from New York State for every special ed student, but that percentage is also a formula and can change. So even if we're getting 60% for every student, we're still paying 40% of that student's tuition, you can call it. And each school has a tuition for each student and how much on average. So like a gen ed student for our district on average is 20 to 21,000, and for a special education is an average of 65,000. So if you cut that even in half, 50%, you're still in the 30,000 mark. When we increase our programs, and we have such amazing programs in the special ed, these services required increased staffing, teachers' assistants, reading specialists, math specialists, related service providers, and so much more. If a specialist teaches 6 periods a day, they could only have 1 student per period, which is only 6 students. So I want everybody to realize when these costs go up, these costs are going up because we're a very specialized school when it comes to special education. And, like I said, I am a supporter of that, and we have, Connecticut has built this special education program and worked on it, throughout these years, bringing things in-house. I would like to give perspective in-house. It does cost, if we sent all of our kids out, just to give perspective, the average student who goes to Prem is $150,000, I believe, and the average, behavioral, it's $180,000. The kids that actually go to Prem, and it's $100,000 for, say, the kids who go to BOCES for other type programs that are not as, intense as the Prem program. So we are saving money in that way, even though we are spending the money. I also would like to point out that we have to give that money in advance. So the state might give us aid, but we're not seeing that aid till the year after. So if you have $100, you're going to have to pay out that $100 right away. So you need to have that money in your budget to lay it out. I also would like to point out that I have to give the staff credit and our cabinet up here, because we actually reimagine things all the time, and they're always working towards cost savings. So if you think of our college and AP courses, there's cost savings in there. Prime example is they reimagined the English 12 honors program. And instead of it now being English 12 honors, it's college English. So kids have the opportunity now to get credits. We didn't have to hire a new staff member, because we are honestly fortunate enough to have staff members that are qualified to teach these courses. So we didn't have to introduce a new course. We didn't have to introduce a new staff member. But we were able to reimagine and give the students a new opportunity to get these college credits without any cost to the district. So another example is the life skill students, the peer mentoring. These classes are, they take the art and the music. Now we opened up this new program, again, at no cost to the district, to allow students of Gen Ed to be part of these classes and be peer mentors. These are great opportunities. So not everything has to cost. Not every program has to cost. So when we're talking about cutting programs, many of us up here have said, let's reimagine them. Let's see what it costs to have it in-house, reimagined, brought back into our system. And I think that's what a lot of us are looking for, that we don't want to see the staff cut. We do want to see things reimagined, and we want to see the money being used in the correct areas. Again, $267,000 for the push-in lunch program at 15 minutes. I just don't think that's the best, in my opinion, the best program for our taxpayers to be paying for only 15 minutes of instruction, which may be 30 minutes the whole entire week. So these are the things that I personally would like us to look into, but I did want to point out some positives also that the district already does, on behalf of the taxpayers and the students.
So my point is, we get aided more than 60%. That's number one. Number two, let's not pat anybody on the back, us or them, okay? Because the simple fact of the matter is, it was more than 3.5 million, okay? I still don't have definitive answers as to where that went. Having said that, this is, again, I'm going to throw it out there. I know for a fact Ockers is half Section 8. How many students are coming out of there? I know across the street from Ronkonkoma Middle School, okay, innumerable different types of housing over there. There's it should never fall on just the resident of this district's shoulders, okay? And I'm not going to get into the fact that the numbers that were given to me, okay, of how many students in which section, okay, is categorically incorrect. Again, instead of looking at all of these and even cutting programs, the very first thing we should be talking about is starting to pull stuff back in housing, okay? And yes, specific to special ed as well, especially.
I just wanted to point out one other thing, that I do agree with Sarah that the board and the district are to blame for certain overspending. So as a board member, our legal fees are also so much higher than they need to be. And we really need to reel that in. And that is the board, that is administration, that is the district. So I also would like to point out that that's another area that we could save a lot of money in if we start being more mindful of every time we call legal, every time we decide about a lawsuit, every time we decide about putting together, a Section 75 or a 3020 or anything that we have to do that costs money, being more mindful of that. And, that again is on myself and, the district.
Okay, then I'm going to go back to, that's pennies, comparatively speaking, to what we are in the red with, okay? Period, end of sentence. And there are different reasons why things are being dragged out. We can't get into that either, okay? But as soon as numbers don't start to not make sense, is when every Board of Education member starts to say, you know what? No, I'm not voting on that. Or the answer is no to 18,000 per place. Okay, it's you can't do that. You actually have to take a stand and say no and vote no on things. It's just what I'm saying.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, this deficit, and I don't know who this falls on. I'm not happy that I didn't know about this deficit until 2 weeks ago. We learned I didn't know. I feel that we should have been told this back months ago, December, whenever it is, so we can actually start looking at this, because I don't think it's fair to us or even the staff or anybody to have to make these decisions so, under the gun. We got less than 2 months until this vote, and we have to start making these decisions. That being said, I am also, go line by line. I had started out with my spreadsheet, which I still have to tone down. I have 75 line items that I had questions on. Luckily, over the last few weeks, some of those, as I've gone through the new updated budgets, I've eliminated about 19 of them, so I still have a lot of questions I have to ask, but all of those budget lines add up to millions of dollars that I want to know if we can trim them down to trim the fat. That's where I want to start, by finding the money. The other things I want to throw out there is, I want to throw out another number here, 877. That is the number of students that take part in the FLES program. That is the program that April is talking about, the lunch program. That's $267,000. Essentially, it's $305 per student to do that. That's the last place I want to start taking things, because the kids, I am not going to sit up here and say, we are going to start cutting programs. That is cutting a program for students that directly affects students. 15 minutes, whatever it might be. There are 877 elementary students who take part in that. And that is the answers that we got from administration for the number of students. I am not looking to cut that at all. There was a lot of we statements in what April said. I think more of it should have been I, or whatever it is, because
It's fine, I'm
doesn't
okay with
include
that.
me. I'm speaking, hold on. So I do not agree with cutting that program at all. I don't know how anybody else feels. That is not for me. The other thing, the legal costs, what I will say is, yes, legal costs are up, but a lot of that is on, in my opinion, just mistakes that have been made. I hate to go back to this, but things like the Thunderbird, I went over it 2 weeks ago, the amount of money we spent on that. I don't think that was necessary. Again, my opinion. Another thing where there's a lot of money is, I know you've brought up Boyles, but if we're transparent with the district, they won't have to foil so much. That won't be something that will happen. Be transparent with them. So yeah, there are definitely things that can help with that, but you also have to do right by the people. And if something is going to cost, say a lawsuit, something that has to happen, you have to be able to do right by your staff, by your students, by everybody that is part of it. But again, I'm going to go back to the beginning. The first thing I want to do is continue to go line by line before I get to staff, and certainly before I get to cutting programs for students. No way. I do not want to cut things that are going to directly affect our students. Again, my opinion, that's just how I feel.
So as a board and as administration, we have spent a lot of time together. I probably spent more time with these people up here than I have with my own family in the last 2 weeks. We met twice last week for 4 to 5 hours at a clip just to go line by line. And that's where the hard decisions are coming from, line by line. Where can we cut? Where can we trim? We need to find the money somewhere. And before I even look at staff, I really need to look at the line by line. I need to find that money somewhere within those lines. Like, are we ordering too much printer paper? Are we giving out too much overtime? Because I'd rather cut back on the overtime and keep a staff member before I get rid of a staff member and hand out overtime. As for the FLES program, I don't even have to give my opinion. Everybody knows where I stand on that. I love foreign language. I want everybody to learn a second language. Do I want to cut the program? I do not. I do not want to cut the program. Can I reimagine it? I have. I have reimagined it. But the way I imagine it, it does cost a lot of money. Dr. Senemo knows my imagination of where I would love that program to go. Bayshore does it currently. We have taken a look at that program in Bayshore. I would love to bring that to Connecticut, but it is a lot of money. But I would reimagine it. I don't know that I'd do away with it, but I'd definitely reimagine it. So we need to find the money in the lines, like Sarah says, like Jackie has said, and even I think April even said it. Find the money, and I would love to do that before I even look at cutting staff.
Correct, and I've said this before and I will say it again, I don't want to see it. It has felt like some of the stuff we have discussed has just been like, this is a big number and an easy solution, so let's look at this. Like, similar to Jackie, when I pulled things out, and granted, maybe you're going to answer a question for me at a later date that I'm going to be like, I understand why the number is that, right? But as it looks right now from my house, some of these things I'm not understanding why we would increase some things like...
Bless you.
You said printer paper. I know everyone's going to think it's funny. It's like actually not a joke. The cost of the printer paper. Why? Like, who's keeping track of how much of it we're using before we start looking at staff? Because at the end of the day, every single position, it doesn't matter what it is, it does impact the kids directly. No matter what it is. Because even if it's not a teacher, we're talking our custodial, our grounds, food service, transportation, every single one of those things trickles down and impacts. Cutting even one, they are there and the position exists. I understand we're up against, backs against the wall a little bit. I'm annoyed our backs are against the wall. I'm annoyed we found out so late that our backs are against the wall, because Sarah's correct. When we start having inklings that there's an issue, we should start asking questions. The problem is that I didn't get any inkling that there was an issue until we were presented with this. And that's where I'm irritated. Because now our backs are against a wall and we're looking like chickens with our heads cut off, having to make these decisions where people are not sure if they're going to be able to feed their families at the end of it. And I understand that there's a lot of questions from staff, community, all of that. We have plenty, too, that still have not gone answered. We're going to end up another 4 to 5 hours together, hopefully getting them answered. But agree, we're going to have to make tough decisions. Those tough decisions do not have to be people and programs right away. I think that there's easier tough decisions that we're going to be able to make to trim some more.
So there are a couple issues that were brought up that I want to address. The attorneys can't be on speed dial for administrators, and I'm not naming names, I'm saying administrator in general, okay? There's no way it should be on speed dial, okay? And 4 and 5 phone calls a day, okay? That stuff adds up. Again, there are so many different issues. If we're going to talk about the Flex program, which in theory things sound good, I question whether the students have learned even 2 words in a 15-minute span of time. Do I want to bring it down to the lower level? Yeah, I think it's really important to learn. But sometimes, if something's not working, you go back to the drawing board. Having said that about that.
So I'd like to speak to the points being made. Certainly, if the board felt that this was brought to them late, myself as superintendent, we apologize. Once the budget was coming together, you really, things needed to make sense so we could go through the line-by-line codes just to see where we were at. And, that difference, it was not months, it was probably a week or so when we realized that no matter what we were going to do, even though we were going to continue to go line by line, and we are continuing to go line by line, that there was going to still be a significant gap. So I apologize if that's the feel of the board, and I don't want the community to think that the administration, the superintendent sat on this for months. But I understand the frustration, and I just wanted to make that clear.
Joe, respectfully, the administration did know for months because the number is not really 3.5. Administration has gone to all the different groups or chair people, directors, and asked them to cut and slash for months, okay? And it wasn't 3.5, it was more to like 5.6 million. I wasn't going to say that, but this isn't we didn't know until the 11th hour. It was the board wasn't told until the 11th hour, okay? And I'm not putting the onus on one person. I'm putting it on all, okay, including the Board of Ed, okay, because questions should have been asked, and they were not.
So in terms of going back to departments and buildings, that is part of the normal process each year, and especially as you're trying to tighten any potential gaps between revenue and expenditure, in terms of going to departments and looking to bring that number down as much as possible.
Joe, you went to the department and they slashed and burned, okay? And the simple fact of the matter is, I want an answer as to why we were 5.6 in the hole and then brought to us, can't cut any more fat, we're at 3.5. It doesn't make sense. I asked what the projected, did we have a shortfall in projected revenue? I was told, yes, 1.8. I said, okay, all the teachers and the staffing can't be touched, as per what everybody's been told by any budget person who's doing the budgets. Okay, so that's untouchable. The only other explanation is overspending. So it should be relatively easy to go line by line by line by line by line by line, okay? I still don't have an answer, a definitive answer, okay? So we're going to agree to disagree on this because I'm not trying to abuse or beat anybody, but come on.
Mr. Hauser, unemployment insurance reserve?
Yes.
I'm actually interested in this one.
Okay. So, yeah, we ended a teacher's retirement system, so unemployment insurance, that one we're self-insured as well. So if anyone leaves the district's employment and they are entitled to unemployment insurance, we have to pay dollar for dollar. And that rate has gone up significantly now that a person might be entitled to. So once again, we have $621,000 sitting in the reserve. If you carry it all the way over, we're expecting the expense to be $300,000, and therefore that's the most we can take out of that reserve. Next one down, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just have a question about that reserve. Mm-hmm. Now, you said that the cost increase went up. It has gone more than double up, dollar for dollar? Is that why we went from 117 to 300,000?
Yeah, so in other words, right now, this budget is fluid, okay? It's a proposed budget. So these numbers are subject to go up, to go down. And what we're estimating right now is that there could possibly be $300,000 needed from that reserve to pay for unemployment claims. Am I answering your question?
No. And only because I don't know if I'm just not grasping it. So we're guessing how many people we will unemploy and how much we'll have to pay them dollar for dollar. And last year, we thought we would only need 117,000, but this year we think we'll need 300,000?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, why?
So we have employees presently right now who have left, they're not employees right now, but they were employed by the district who are collecting unemployment insurance for up to 26 weeks. And we expect some of those, right, that's 6 months worth of time. We might have another person going on soon, 6 months out. So that expenditure, even if someone goes on unemployment right now, it can carry over into July to August and into September. So we're doing our best based on current expenditures to guesstimate what unemployment insurance is going to be.
Okay.
But that's certainly, as we go through the budget development, like everything else is fluid, that number can be adjusted.
Yeah.
Down as well.
And like I said, we got to be mindful. I believe that rate went from in the $500 range all the way up into the $800 range. So it's a significant increase that the unemployment insurance division has awarded to anybody who's eligible. All right, next one, insurance reserve. So we
Hey,
have.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just to make it like not circular talk. Are we doubling that number or whatever, more than doubling it because we are preparing for a potential, like in the event of needing to excess? Is that the thought process there, or are we just like assuming?
Some of it. I would say some of it, not all of it. No.
Because I feel like we just need to like say what it is. It's right. Like we all know, but like it just felt very circular, and I just wanted to make sure I was understanding correctly.
Is anything in that untouchable aisle that I said about employees and teachers, anything there aidable? And does it behoove us to self-insure? Is there another way that you feel would be more prudent?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. When you say, you're talking about employees.
Right, unemployment, and you said that we have to pay. We're self-insured dealing with that, yes?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Is
Yes.
there another avenue that might be beneficial to us to look in, where it's not self-insuring, it's through a company? I don't know, I'm asking you. It sounds like a cookie question, but.
Yep. No, listen, we could always ask the workers' comp board, right? They're the ones who oversee unemployment, if we could participate in one of their programs where it's more of an expense-based billing. You know, you're kind of lumped into a pool, like a small business would pay for unemployment insurance, where you're not self-insured. You're part of the whole unemployment insurance pool. I don't know if that would be beneficial or not to the district, but it's something I can look into. So next one was insurance reserve. So once again, like I said before, some of these reserves are very specific and they can only be used for specific reasons. That particular reserve, it's got $1.5 million in it. It's only for if the district were to be sued and we lost the lawsuit and there was an award, we could use that reserve to pay out. Some districts, neighboring districts who are struggling with Child Victim Act claims against the district, against certain employees who were there many, many years ago, those claims are allowed to be paid out. Thankfully, we do not have any of those claims. Any claim that we did have was paid by prior insurance companies here. So in absence of having being sued and having an award against us or any other type of claim that I just mentioned, insurance related, we're not allowed to use that reserve. Next one is capital reserve. $1,900,000 in there, and that's a voter-approved reserve that was set up for capital projects. The only way to actually expend that money from the reserve is to get voter permission to expend it. So right now we don't have any specific projects that we have identified to take out of there, and hence we're not using that reserve. Repair reserve, only $230,000. That's really for an emergency repair if it popped up. We're allowed to take the money out of that reserve to pay for that emergency, but there's a certain criteria that requires that reserve to be funded, I believe, back in 2 years. Debt service, if we had any bonds that we borrowed money for large capital projects, and if those projects came in under budget, and so there were bond monies that were left over, a district is permitted to transfer those monies into a debt service fund, and then you can use those monies to pay down principal and interest payments. We don't have any monies in that fund, so therefore we cannot use it. Coming down to state aid, and we do make an adjustment here for the universal pre-kindergarten program because that's paid out of another bucket called the special aid fund at the district. So we deduct $1.9 million to give us a true accurate number of $59,045,766 that the governor has proposed. We spoke about that a little earlier, that we're waiting to get the final number there. So as you can see, just a small increase in state aid.
Bob, if I can jump in. So we have heard from both houses of the legislature that in their proposal of the budget, they are proposing a minimum of 2%, for the foundation aid component.
Okay, and that number, we actually highlighted in blue the additional 1% that we are, I'll say optimistic that we will receive it. So that'll only be a 2% increase in foundation aid. There's about 12 different components of state aid. What we're talking about in the blue is just foundation aid. It used to be 3% was the safe harbor. It's down to 2%, hopefully, as we speak. Okay. So as you can see, the total of the revenues, they're actually decreasing $1.8 million, $1,812,000. And just keep that in mind because I'm going to come back to that quickly. So the following line, amount to be raised by taxes, that's called the levy. That's what the residents of the school community are being asked to pay, is currently at $148,840,217, and that's the tax cap. And I said it before, we're at the max of 2.15.
And some of those exclusions would be things that are eligible, such as some of the technology projects in the district that if they weren't through the formula, they would have to be then budgeted through the general fund. Yeah. And also some safety things with like fire, the fire system. John, what was the fire? The panels, the fire panels? Yeah, fire panels. Things like that, which makes it eligible for the exclusions.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify, because some of you might be questioning, if you look at that line, amount to be raised by taxes, and you carry it all the way over to the right, and there's a 2.15% increase, the question might be asked, how come you're asking to collect more money from the community than the expenses at the very top of the spreadsheet are going up, which is only 1.9%? Well, the difference, for the most part, the difference is those miscellaneous revenues that are going down $1,800,000. We've got to make that up in order to support that budget. So hence the reason we're collecting more money in tax revenue versus how much is actually being proposed to go out the door because of all those different changes in the miscellaneous revenue. Going down, we highlighted in yellow. You can see where we currently stand right now with the I'll say the difference or the shortfall. All right, but I want to emphasize that's fluid and flexible. Right now, it changes every time we identify a specific line item in those 1,000 codes that we review constantly to change. So that number, it has come down from prior presentations, but that's where it stands right now. And then I just gave a quick sample at the bottom, what those proposed numbers mean to individual residents in the community, depending upon what your home is assessed at. So real quick, just to highlight, for some resident in the district whose home is right now assessed at $10,000, if you go to the right of the green column, you can see that your school taxes, okay, are proposed to be $2,153. That represents an increase of $45.31 to pay for this current budget, or the equivalent of 2.15%.
So, Bob, I have a question on the debt service fund that has zero in it.
Yep.
If we had money in that, would, let's say a principal payment is coming due, would we be able to pay out of the debt service if we had money in it?
Yeah, on that particular bond, yep.
So, again, explain to me why there's $0 in the debt service fund if we have principal payments coming up. It's just, again, throwing that question out.
So of the debt that we have right now, the different bonds that have been, I'll say, closed out and finalized, all right, there were no monies available to put into that debt service fund. The current bond that was approved, I think, in 2022, $59 million bond that's in progress right now, and we're working towards completion of all the projects. It's too early to determine right now if there's going to be a surplus from that can be transferred into that debt fund.
So maybe I misunderstood you. I thought you had said to us that one of the issues is that a principal payment is coming due. Am I wrong about that?
We have principal payments being made each year. There's the principal payment on the bond anticipation note, the current $59 million capital bond project. That principal payment is being increased by, I believe, $1,250,000.
Oh, okay, but I'm sorry, maybe I'm confused. That's aided, yes? Or no?
Well, we received building
money
aid,
that
yes.
we've already
Yeah,
received.
yeah.
So again, why do we have zero in the debt service fund if we could actually have utilized that to make payments?
Prior capital projects, okay, that we borrowed the monies, there were no funds left over at the end of those bonds to transfer into that fund, that reserve. Okay, moving along. So I don't know if we reviewed this, but we quickly can. This is just a real summary of the prior page, and it just shows how we got to this this difference of a little over $3 million. And it's at the moment it's taking into account our proposed revenues, all right, the state aid that we expect to receive, the tax levy, which is from the residents of the district. All of that totals $230 million. Okay, the proposed expenditures are $233 million. So, and I'm simplifying the math, you wind up with a difference of $3 million right now. Okay. I just wanted to include this slide. We went through it already. These are just the reserves, all right? And I think you heard my voice enough about reserves. So we don't need to spend too much time, but it's just there for information purpose to show everyone where we've been over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5 school years with our reserves.
So, okay, what you just gave us, okay, you're saying the difference is $3,037,000, give or take change, right? Then I thought you said that we were shorted on the future revenue, 1.8. That's not, 1.8 million is not 3 million.
So I believe the 1.8 you're referring to is
The number you gave me.
Yeah, but just so everyone else understands. So the line on this screen that's highlighted in blue, the total other revenues, if you carry it all the way over to the number that's just below the number highlighted in blue, is 1.8. So that's the difference. If I'm understanding you correctly, that's the difference in miscellaneous
In projected revenue.
Correct.
That you were shorted.
Right. In miscellaneous, yep.
You say miscellaneous, is it only miscellaneous, or does it have anything to do with the other funds that we talked about? Because she's trying to understand how one says 1.8 and one says 3 point, it used to be 3.6, but you have 3 point.
Yeah, the expenses are high at 4, right? The change in expenses is $4,357,000, okay? But the change in all of the proposed revenues, except the levy, okay, which includes state aid, all of the reserves and the other miscellaneous revenue, that's going down 1.8.
So basically, I think just to clarify it, so in other words, we have a certain number, what's coming in is less than what we have normally gotten, and yet the expenses went up. So the difference between where the expenses went up and the amount that we're now not getting is the 3 million.
I would say that's a good way to sum it up. Yep.
And why was I told 1.8?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Sinema already reviewed this slide with going through line by line and certain other considerations. Okay.
So as we look at programs, one positive is that the governor is proposing to raise the aid threshold that's very specific just to universal pre-K. The aid threshold per student has been too low for years, and it hasn't met the funding needs. So the district, like most districts that have the UPK, you have to supplement that. The good news is that the governor is proposing, both houses seem to be on board with that, to raise that per student threshold for this specific aid category that can only be used for this. So that means that'll help with the budget, and also it'll enable us, depending on parent needs, to add 2 to 3 sections. And Ms. Poppy is looking, for where those classrooms would be. So that's one positive component to maximize that particular aid category and also meet parent needs as well. In terms of other programs, we were talking about this last time. We would like to maintain the alternative high school. That's the evening program. So that's still under review. It's not currently in the budget because the BOCES cost has spiked. That number that was given last time was based on, I think, actual expenditures in the past. But BOCES reached out to us and said they were underbilling us and that they couldn't underbill us anymore. So the actual number moving forward is that 286. That evening program happens at the same time and does provide kind of the overarching structure for 2 other programs, Alternative Learning Center, which is meets the needs of our students who are on suspension, and credit recovery for high school students who might be at risk of not graduating. To run those 2 programs without the alternative high school structure in place is just under $189,000, which is currently in the budget. That number would actually come down a little bit if the alternate high school structure is in place. So as we're going line by line, we're also trying to figure out how we can work back in the alternative high school. I have had multiple conversations with the executive over at Eastern Suffolk BOCES to try to see if there's anything else they could do with that combined expense when you factor in all 3 of those evening programs, especially the alternative high school. And they're really, the last conversation was even today, they're really at the best they can do with that cost. So that remains one of our priorities as we continue to develop this budget with the board.
Before we go past alternative high school, I just want to say the same thing I said last time. We have those who utilize alternative high school are not going to suddenly wake up and be in school like every other kid. So we now will have to, we're circling the drain. Now we're looking back at out of district placements or home tutoring, whatever it's going to be. It's just not, this is going to probably be a little harsh, but I feel like it's not our problem that BOCES was underbilling us. It sounds like a problem on their end, right? So now they're going to also, what are we talking about here? Because what happens, these students are going to end up either dropping out because they can't, clearly, they're in alternative high school because they can't get to regular high school. And I have yet to hear what the plan is. I understand the cost factor, but when we are talking about cutting things, we are just talking about cutting certain kids' futures at that point. And this feels non-negotiable to me. I can only speak for me because, again, unless somebody can paint me a plan that is not just like, we're going to work on integrating them back into a regular school day. I feel like we probably tried that already before they ended up in alternative high school. Like, I don't think we just send everybody there very quickly. So, like, again, like, that's a humongous problem to me because it's just going to circle right back to the cost of home tutoring and out-of-district placement. And, like, are we even saving at that point by not having it?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, part of this discussion doesn't even seem to include what it would cost to now educate those students in another way. Maybe that'll be 500,000. We don't even know what it would be now to. So we're not even looking at this in a fiscal way to say, okay, if we did do this, which there is no plan for what we're going to do with these students, what would that option cost us? We're not even comparing those numbers at all. And I agree. I don't think you can just take those students like, oh, we're closing this. Here you go. Now you have to go back. And again, that's something that's affecting students. And I'm with you. I don't think that's something that we should negotiate, and especially to even have that discussion without knowing what an alternate plan would be or what that alternate plan would cost.
So we
Without
just want,
that, I can't say, I can never ever say yes to this without even a hint of that information. I don't even know if with that information I could say yes to this, but that's not even, we don't even have that.
So we just wanted the feedback from the board because it is a priority for us as well to figure out how to work that back into the budget development. So again, that is our focus, is to work it back into the budget development.
So for me, and this is like my word of the evening here, reinventing. I had asked why we want to go through BOCES. Knowing how I just pointed out that BOCES for a special education kid is 1 to 180,000, but if we keep them in-house, it's 65,000. Why would we want to go to BOCES? What would be the cost if we kept this program in-house? And that's what I need to know. I need to know what the difference is for in-house so we can figure out where that money's coming from.
And that's exactly a part of what I think we all need to know. If we did change this, what is that going to cost, and what is that going to look like for those students if you wanted to go that route, if, that's how we decided to go.
In terms of the day program, the high school academy, we're not recommending this program, but we're not looking to cut any of the staffing. We're looking to try to reimagine and repurpose the staff and reservice the students in other ways, but that is still in the budget, and the staff would just simply reassign to continue to meet student needs. So that still remains intact, but we think that there's a better way to service our kids and to better utilize. It's very staff intensive, and we feel like we could better utilize the staff assigned and meet the needs of the kids. In terms of the summer enrichment program, we just feel that in terms of meeting kids' summer needs, there's not much enrichment to that program as it is. That especially with the town offering a summer playground program, they kind of shift from the summer enrichment program to the town program.
So I have a question. Even on tonight's, the things we have to vote on, there's service agreements, there's Medicare agreements, there's health and welfare services agreements. We're talking about bringing a lot of stuff in-house. Can someone explain to me why we're yet again asked to approve this for the following year? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am, though.
Are you talking about the consent agenda, Sarah?
6 and 7. We're being asked to, again.
I believe those are programs for this school year.
I actually was going to ask about those two, just to get a background on what they
During the
were.
consent agenda?
Ms. O'Hara, are you able to
Since
speak
7.
on that?
Okay, so 6 is our Medicaid service agreement. It's a agency that we use that bills all of our Medicaid eligible billing. So we get money back for students that we can bill that are Medicaid eligible. So they are the ones that do all of that billing for us. Number 7 is actually an agreement for a particular student. It's a residential placement.
Okay, I'm going to move on. It's just after 9. So I promise you, this is the last slide. What I did here is I just highlighted the top 7 significant, not significant, but the top 7 increases in the budget as we speak. All right. Obviously, at the very top are out-of-district placements, which for the most part represent students who are residents of the Connecticut School District who are educated outside of one of our 10 school buildings. Okay. The second line is that bond anticipation note. That's the $59 million project that the voters approved in 2022. There's an additional $1,250,000 that's due on the principal on that bond. Okay. Third is health insurance for all of our current employees as well as our retirees. Okay. And then the state retirement systems, the ERS and TRS, which we spoke about, both of those have increases. Social Security tax, that's also known as FICA, on every active employee's payroll. That's an increase. And then last are the BOCES related occupational education services. So students that we send to the various BOCES schools and BOCES programs, that's expected to increase $445,000 right there.
But these out-of-district placement is amply state aided. It's not 15%, it's not 50%. It's exponentially higher than that. So the out-of-district placement and the 21.82% isn't really washing into or making sense to me. That's number one. I get the bond anticipation note. Again, health insurance, active employees, retirees, there's a certain part of the budget that's untouchable, okay? And that should have been anticipated, quite frankly, years before. It's just, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I'm sorry, that's the way I feel. I feel like I want some definitive answers. These, while they're look like big numbers, there's a lot of the out-of-district placement is a large percentage of each child is aided.
Right, but can you clarify for us, Bob or Dr. Sanmore, what you mean by out-of-district placement? Is it the BOCES students, or is it students who are going to other schools because they felt that we did not fit the needs of their children?
So I'll answer the first part for Sarah, Ms. Parisi, and then Ms. O'Hara can speak to that piece. You still have to, even when items are aidable, you still have to lay out the year of the expenditure, and then the following year is when you realize the aid. So this is just to show expenditure.
Right, but it's still, we're putting it up there on the screen, like this is, we're paying X amount going out.
We're just trying to explain in terms of the expenditure codes, just the expenditure for next year, which codes are really jumping by a large amount. That's all that slide is intended to do. Ms. O'Hara, can you just explain the placement?
So the out-of-district placement students are any students that are in BOCES, residential placements, placements such as DDI that are not out-of-district, that are not BOCES. April, I think what you are specifically referring to are students that we may are not, the parents are not happy with the services, look for a school that's not New York State approved. Right now, there are only 2 in the district.
Okay, so this number consists of all of that together, that makes up this increase of the 21%. Thank you.
That's the end of my hour-long presentation. Hope you enjoyed it. If anyone has any questions, I'm it, so please feel free to let me know if you need any additional information or have a question that needs to be answered. Thank you.
I have a question, Marisol. Just one last question. If in fact the board doesn't get definitive answers, okay, can we look into, so we're not playing beat the clock, can we look into potentially having the vote postponed, the budget vote postponed till later on? What are the ramifications of that? How much does it cost? is it conducive to us getting everything we need without being rushed?
We could look into it. Yeah, I would have to work with Sabrina on that.
But don't we have guidelines that we have to hit, the dates, certain dates?
Oh, yeah, we do. But whether they're flexible or not, I would have to work with Sabrina to reach out to the attorney.
We've
for
done this
guidance.
before at Connecticut. That's
okay.
why I wanna know.
And certainly we want to answer the questions, that the board has.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hauser, for being robust. Would I like a comment? They're coming up in 2 seconds. If you would like to get a card from the security in the back, Ed, get a card. Go do it. We're going to approve some policies and then we'll get to you. Okay. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of policy 5500-R, student records, and policy 8635E, Parents' Bill of Rights for student data privacy and security?
Motion.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions on those? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
And Sarah's no. Mr. Ibrahim, thank you for so patiently waiting. Your turn is up.
All right. So I could not attend the last meeting, but a little bit before that last meeting, I had the opportunity to go to a Long Island-wide student forum, which was very, very cool. And at this forum, I got to meet with firstly, it was myself and 2 other students from our school, and then a bunch of other students across Long Island from various schools, BOCES programs, all sorts of things. And we got put in discussion groups and got to talk about various issues and topics, and it was really great to hear a lot of perspectives and kind of see what they do at other schools. So I came back, I took a list of what I thought was the best ideas and biggest things that I heard that I wanted to talk about. One of the things that I don't remember which school it was, but they shared that their school does club fairs at the start of the year, and I think that's really cool because maybe like in the similar way how we have the Wellness Day, where it's like different grade levels or different classes goes down for different periods, just so it's not everybody all at once because we have a pretty big school. Maybe we could do a similar thing one day of the year for a club fair, because I know this is an issue we've talked about a couple times, but we have a lot of clubs and they're really great, but nobody knows about them. And I think a club fair where they're in a room, there's tables, they can see all the different things, they could, we could kind of like, clubs could go and promote themselves, and I think it's helpful for everybody, but particularly, freshmen coming in who maybe don't know what they're interested in, can get to see different things and kind of develop an interest. I was also told about a program, I believe it was called Breaking Borders, and from the way it was described to me, it was similar to how this student forum was run. It was kind of like I don't remember if it was every month or every couple of months, but the way it worked, it was students, it was like a club almost, and students met up with students from other schools in the same way like the forum was run, and just did what we did at the forum, like discuss different issues, and it kind of promoted, the kid that was telling me about it told me that he felt a lot more connected to the other grade, because it kind of, at least with me, I feel like between schools there's a lot of kind of like sectionalism. It's like, all right, like I'm a Connecticut kid, that kid goes to Eastside Slip, like it's very segregated. So I think that like having kids meet up regularly, I'm fortunate enough to have friends from other schools through sports, but a lot of people, if you don't do sports, if you don't do clubs that require you to travel to other schools a lot, you're never meeting other kids from other schools, or at least not regularly. So I think that was pretty cool. In addition to that, we were told about one school shared that their school had shadowing classes. I know that we have like the job shadow program. Like I'm going on another job shadow with Mrs. Rapone later on this month. But she was saying that they have at her school classes, and I don't know if we have something similar. I've never heard of it. If we do, But classes where they go and shadow, like I think the example that she cited was, it was in nursing, so it was at, like, I don't remember if it was a hospital or some sort of medicine related thing. So I think that's really cool. And then the one other thing, we talked a lot about how certain, I'm a big AP student. I've taken a lot of AP classes. I've kind of always been on like the accelerated tracks for classes. And one of the things that we talked about as a benefit to those, besides just the college credit, is they really teach you a lot of research skills and how to, not just things, but how to extract information. And somebody shared that they feel like the more like on level, like Regents level classes don't do the same thing of teaching students how to research and vet information and kind of go out and learn for themselves, which I think is a really important skill because, you know, I don't remember most of the things that I learned from 10th grade AP seminar, but I remember the skills of here's how you get research, here's how you properly vet a source. So I think that could be a skill that if it's not already in those Regents level classes, it should definitely be implemented in. And yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
Wow, Mr. Abraham, those are really great points that you brought up. I love the club fair. I'd like to know a little more about this class shadowing, right? The whole class goes and shadows up.
From my understanding, I think it was like in the same way that we have like the school, like in the same way that we have like all right, this period's a class. It's like, or maybe more similar to like
The whole class would go.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it's like, I don't know. We only talked about it for a little bit because we went through like a lot of topics, but I would imagine it's not necessarily like, all right, yeah, this big cohort of 30 kids is going to this one place. Maybe a little bit more broken up, or maybe just smaller class sizes. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought it was really cool.
I love that, and I love all the ideas that you brought forward. And I just want to take a moment to congratulate you because I saw that you were in the 1500 club for your SATs. Congratulations to you and to the other gentleman that joined you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Michael Fabry.
Yes, that's quite an accomplishment. So kudos to you. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that was going to be my number one note, Michael, that congratulations. But I also would like to talk about the club fairs. So for several years since I've been on the board, I've been asking for the program to come back. When your older brother was in school and my older kids, we actually had that. So we had ninth grade orientation. You went to ninth grade orientation. Every club was there. So parents went around to see every club, and you went back to your kids and said, oh my goodness, I saw this club, blah, 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 you know, everything that your kid would be interested in. And I said that made such a difference because I remember going to every one of those tables and asking questions and bringing that home to my students. So anybody that has older kids in our district, if they remember that ninth grade, it was in the evening, you would go, you could see all the tables, and then you sat in the auditorium. They went through each director or class heads would come and talk about what electives they had, what programs we ran, everything. That sometimes when our ninth grade students are in there, they're not listening as closely. But when parents go to these things, they're listening. They know what is being offered. So I would love to see that come back because it really, I agree with you. It was great and wonderful and supported all the different clubs and the different programs we had.
Yeah, just sorry, one quick thing. I volunteered last year during, I think it was like the math department, or it was curriculum night as a whole, I think. And I was there to help out with the math department, talking about some of like the electives. I think we might have also done clubs. I feel like I remember talking about the clubs, and I got to talk about a lot of the computer science electives run through the math department. And I think stuff like that is great. I think it's even better when it's at something like during the school day or something like orientation where it's like it's not. No one wants to come at 7:30 at night back to the school to go to curriculum night, you know. But like if they're already at the school for orientation, they're already at the school for the school day. It kind of makes it a little easier. They're kind of forced to pass it and be like, oh hey, that might be interesting. Yeah.
I also think that having it during the school day, the parents might not. They might think they know what their child is interested in, but they're right. So they might see a club that's like, oh, I would love to join this club. My parents would never think that I would join this club. So seeing the students seeing the clubs, I think, is great.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I vaguely remember there was times where, like, very brief push-ins to the classroom, I think, happened too. Like, if I was in, like, a digital art class, if there was some sort of club that kind of coincided with that, like they would just come in and tell us about it, because to be so for real, if my mom when I was in 9th grade came home and was like, oh my God, this club sounds so cool, I promise you I'm not going. No shot. So sure, the parents can learn about it, but like my mom coming home at that age and being like, I think this would be cool for you, I have now solidified that is not something I'm going to be part of. So I think it's important for that. But I do remember it was a brief.
Because I didn't have those kids. You're so mean.
I do remember it was like a very brief thing into the classroom. The club advisor would just come in and tell us, like, but it always made sense with the class is the point. Like that type of class and that club made sense together, and that was helpful.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we can work on doing that for the high school and even the 2 middle schools, because those 6th graders go there and they want to be part of something maybe. They can see what their friends like, so maybe we can look into doing something like that for both middle schools and the high school for next year. I think it's a great idea.
I will say, kind of on what Jackie just said, there are two electives that I took throughout high school that I 100% would not have known about if I wasn't told about it in middle school, like science research with Mr. Halloran. There's 4 of them. I only took it freshman year. I only took science research 1, but I only took it because in my earth science class they had a whole thing where he came and told us about it. And then there was a computer science elective that was told about it. I know during the Algebra 1 class Mr. Brady comes and teaches the students the programming, and he told us about it. So I think sharing that information early on, and then still continuing during high school, like I think during the middle schools too, is a really great idea.
Thank you. Okay, I will now open the floor to the first open public comment portion of the agenda. I will call individuals forward one at a time. Please wait for my acknowledgement before stepping up to the podium. You should have received a number card from security on your way in. If you have not, please see a security guard in the back of the room. Any person wishing to address the board shall address the board president. Comments shall be kept as brief as possible and relate to school matters only. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for 1 or more topics. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. The use of foul language and threatening comments will not be tolerated, and the board will consider a recess until order is restored. In accordance with Policy 1230, public comment will not exceed 30 minutes. If there are additional persons wishing to speak, the board may consider a motion to extend the time. Go. Number 1. You're in.
Okay. Good evening, all. One thing I used to hear when I worked for a living, numbers don't lie. Mr. Hauser generated an Excel sheet, and I bet if you went through it, you wouldn't find hidden 3 million. We just have to balance it. I totally agree what all the board members said. Nobody wants to hurt children, and you can't get rid of staff. And as far as looking for insurance, you can. I ran into that only this month. I manage a nonprofit, and they complained the insurance was too high. And I went around running for other people. I couldn't find it cheaper. But we self-insure, but you could try looking to the insurance people. Years ago, on one of my first jobs, and worked in engineering, I was on the 2nd floor, and on the 1st floor, there was a production line. The production line never stopped. It always kept on going. And I said, how is that possible? Don't they have problems? And they said, of course they have problems. I said, what do they do when they have a problem? They are told to make a decision. If they make a right decision, all well and good. If they make a wrong decision, well, we'll fix it at the end of the production line. But the production line never stops. Education never stops. We have to make a decision someplace, somehow. And I know I was told one time, You can't tell volunteers what to do. Well, not telling you what to do is just unfortunate. You have to have a balanced budget. Okay, there's only so much money coming in, so you could lie about your expenditures, right? Other districts did that, but they got caught in the end. Where's the money going to come from? How are you going to pay the bills? How are you going to do your programs? You can't do that. Okay, maybe some more will come from the state, but that's wishful thinking for all of us. Someplace, somehow, you have a list of things you want to cut. I understand that. Someplace, somehow, some way, you're going to have a balanced budget. You're going to have to make some very hurtful decisions. If anyone was ever caught between a rock and a hard place, certainly we are. We certainly are this year. Because you're going to have to present a balanced budget. You can't have a little $3 million hanging that you can't resolve. I don't have a fix for you, I really don't. It's your job.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. Number 2. I'm like, is that April? Number 2?
Hi. So I can only compare what you're all doing to like a household budget. It's the biggest budget I've certainly not done anything in comparison to this. But if it's one thing I know is that it does have to come a little bit from every place. It can't obviously all be taken from one place and expected to just be over with. Having said all that, I like everyone has said, nobody wants to see any job loss. I know we've been there. We recently had to sell our home. We're now in purchase a very, very small home, all through because of job loss during COVID. So I get that, and I wouldn't want to see anybody else's family go through it. However, when we talk about all this budgeting and all the lines and all of that has to be gone through, and I could feel rotten eggs coming at me as I prepare for it, but why is almost everybody's comment, the last resort is going to be, people losing jobs or accessing? Why is it not the last resort is going to be affecting the kids and losing programs and cutting things? That prioritization doesn't, to me, no, we have amazing teachers, always have in this district. I'm not saying I want to see anybody go, but in the same token, it shouldn't be so off limits, and I don't feel it should be the last resort. It's got to be equal among, like I was saying, all the different areas. When we had came to the realization we have to get rid of this house and blah, 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 and cut expenses, well, it came from everywhere. It came from who had a gym a membership, cancel it. Who had, going out to dinner to cancel it, don't do it. It came from little places, and it all adds up. So to constantly hear historically, we can't access, we can't. It's a declining enrollment over the last how many years. It's unfortunate, but even like to hear you say the academy might go. Isn't that kind of the new thing, the academy that we did in the last several years? Is that a medical grouping of classes?
No, it's a program in the high school. It's totally different.
Okay, so I don't really know what that is, but even at that, but don't worry, we won't get rid of any staff. We'll reassign them, or a teacher on special assignment, or whatever terms they use. I feel, unfortunately, if jobs have to be part of the budget cutting, it's got to be part of it. And like I said, the top priority for me is the last resort is going to be taking from the kids. They always get taken from. whether it's, an academy or this night school or whatever it is. I'm just not.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you. I hear you and I understand what you're saying. And our first priority, and I will not speak for everybody, but I believe we all share the common goal of kids first and programs first. And I forgot who said it, but somebody here said it tonight, that cutting staff affects kids. So we do prioritize that also in making our decisions and keeping staff over a program. So we try to see where we affect the kids the least, just to be fair. Number 3.
Good evening. My name is Greg Von Brook. I serve the operations unit. I am the president. Many of you know me, some of you don't. Thank you for having me. I'm here tonight to advocate for 2 critical positions that currently remain unfilled. One is set to retire at the end of April. One is already retired, been promoted, and stands open. Our maintenance mechanic and groundskeeper. It is vital for the board to understand that any cuts or delays in staffing these roles will not only set our department back, but will leave the district worse financially in the long run. These positions are our first line of defense when it comes to the health and safety of our students and staff. When people see a groundskeeper on a job listing, they might think of the aesthetics of the building or mowing the lawn. But the reality goes much deeper. Behind every accolade of our sports or music department programs is the groundskeeper. He's worked tirelessly to ensure the playing fields are safe and everything is ready. These are the individuals who plow through the toughest of storms when conditions are so severe that most of you won't go out of your houses, ensuring our campuses are safe and accessible. Furthermore, by managing our intricate irrigation system that we've recently taken on in the last few years, we've saved tens of thousands of dollars in contract fees and it would continue to add savings to the district. If we didn't do these in-house repairs ourselves, we would be spending contracted services, and those are exponentially more expensive. The same level of specialized skills required for our maintenance mechanics. This role is essential for the professional installation of new systems and the rigorous upkeep of our existing facilities. By performing the highest level technical work internally, we eliminate the need for third-party contractors who charge premium rates. When you look at the thousands of dollars saved annually through these in-house repairs and installations, these positions effectively become self-sustainable. The cost of their salaries is an investment that prevents the much higher cost of deferred maintenance and emergency contracted services. Currently, we have one position unfilled and another set to retire. I respectfully ask that both of these positions be filled immediately so that we can continue to sustain our equipment and buildings in the most productive, safe, and efficient way possible. If more specific data is needed regarding the cost-benefit analysis of these roles, I encourage you to reach out to our Director of Facilities. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope that these positions stay in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and speaking and giving us feedback. Number 4.
Good evening. I want to begin by stating clearly I am in support of bringing more special education services in-house. Expanding in-district programming is something our community, including teachers, parents, administrators, SEPTA members, and support staff, has advocated for over many years. However, this is not a new idea. It has been brought forward multiple times in the past and was not supported, especially by April. That makes it fair to ask why now, what has changed? Successful implementation requires more than just an agreement. It will depend on administrative authority to mandate necessary training, consistent staff development and support, and long-term planning with sustainable funding. Without these pieces in place, the initiative cannot be carried out effectively. Connect can support the goal while also being realistic. Bringing more services in district is important, but not every situation can or should be handled in-house. Some students require specialized placement for medical or behavioral needs to ensure safety for both students and staff. This is where concern arises. An initiative that has long been requested and previously declined is now being highlighted in a different context. That shift raises valid questions about to discourage this effort, but to strengthen it. If we move forward, it must be done thoughtfully, transparently, and with commitment to what it actually requires. More importantly, this must remain about students. Decisions should be driven by students' needs, not timing, and certainly not politics, April. I advocated and supported hiring an incredible executive unit tremendously. You all were not on the Board of Ed several years ago when special education was not led with such strong leadership. Now it has exceptional leadership since she arrived. Now on to broader concerns about fiscal responsibility and governance. So let me get this straight. Instead of acknowledging all of your shortcomings, this board refuses to admit that it lacked the foresight to request proper budget projections back in October, when potential shortfalls could have been identified early and addressed responsibly. Now, April advocating to pierce the cap, the tax cap, really, places an additional burden on community members, many of whom are already struggling. In past years, there was a clear and consistent process. Questions about budget projections were asked and answered, and the board provided direction on where adjustments should be made. It was never about placing unlimited financial strain on taxpayers. Yet this year, fiscal discipline, because of this board, appears to have been abandoned. Board decisions have been made that suggest a lack of restraint, including approving significant reimbursements that raise serious ethical and financial concerns. These choices that you made should have been made with a full understanding of the district's financial position, not after the fact and not because it was a board member's friend. This raises an important question: were these decisions made in the best interest of the community, or were other influences at play? Board of Ed members targeted a long-time admin that may not tenure and keep her. You focused on targeting this lady rather than asking questions to help balance the budget. I hope in hindsight you see your very big mistakes due to your personal agendas. There are also concerns about board overreach. My phone has not stopped ringing from people looking for help. Trustees appear to be involving themselves in areas such as transportation and union-related matters. I'll get up and finish it after on the next one.
Thank you. Number 5. Is there a number 5? No. Okay. Can I call for a motion and a second to approve the instructional personnel items as presented?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions on those? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, aye. I'm sorry.
And Sarah's a no. Can I please call for a motion and a second to approve the non-instructional personnel items?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Sarah's a no. Can I call for a motion and a second to approve? Yep, to approve items 2 through 13 of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions on those?
Not a question. I just want to highlight one of them that I think is number 9, the Beats for Liam event.
Yes.
That we have on there. I know we haven't approved anything yet, but I know we've done this for many years, and just a thank you to bringing this. It came out of tragedy, but thank you so much for bringing this program to try to help other students. I've taken part in it as soon as my son was old enough, and now I think my middle guy is going to be able to do it. He's old enough, so thank you for bringing this here, and I always encourage every parent. It takes nothing to just go. It's quick. They run it so incredibly well with the different stations. It's worth it to get that EKG for your child. You know, set yourself up, sign up for a time slot, and go. And thank you again to the family for once again looking to bring this to our district.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're good?
Oh, yeah, aye, sorry.
Okay, no, you're fine. Just making sure. All right, superintendent update, Dr. Sedamore.
Thank you. So last week, Student Services sponsored a very successful dinner and movie night for the showing of Screen Ages over at OBMS. Very well attended, despite the fact that, well, maybe it was a week and a half ago, despite the fact that we had a little bit of snow that evening. The video was great. It was very helpful for our parents, especially of those elementary kids that are just about to hit their adolescence on the challenges of the digital devices, especially the phone. So thank you for the community for coming out, for our partnership with Yes and to Student Services. ILAO recently held a Makerspace Fair where over 111 students participated. A credit to them, their families, the staff. The principal sponsored a challenge to get that many kids to participate, where they got to confetti string her, and News 12 even covered it. So she was a very good sport for that. We recently held an E&L Fun Night at RMS. Over 150 participants went to that. Might even be pushing 200. So credit to the E&L department and Ms. Sosa. Just a great job, and we heard that the families and the students especially had a wonderful time. Over this past weekend, the high school robotics team was in competition at Hofstra University. This is actually a multi-day event. I had the opportunity to go visit with them and see a couple of their competitions on Saturday morning. Just incredible, the work that team does, and the tremendous learning. And what's really neat is that it's also a career pathway, because we have alumni who are part of the original robotics team who are now working in the field and now are giving back to help the program. So just great job by the kids, the alumni, and the staff involved. Last evening, OBMS held their Pops concert. Pops concert is essentially where the student musicians actually get to help select the pieces that they're going to perform. Last night was OBMS. It was a packed auditorium. Music was outstanding. Tomorrow night will be RMS's turn for their pop concert at the high school. So we're anticipating another packed house and a lot of great music. Earlier today, a very special person who has certainly visited our schools many times and visited many schools throughout, Holocaust survivor and author Marion Blumenthal-Lazan, presented to students at OBMS. Just an incredible human being. Certainly when we look to that generation of World War II and the Holocaust, we realize that whether they're Holocaust survivors, World War II veterans, that generation is slowly leaving us. So to be able to get a Holocaust survivor and an author, the children have read a book, Four Perfect Pebbles, to come in and present living history, and just a wonderful human being. And News 12 covered that as well, so hopefully we'll see that. No, she was here today.
Oh, she was here.
She was here today.
I didn't understand what you were
I
saying.
was understanding that she passed away.
I thought she passed away, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my kids.
Well, what I was saying is that that generation. I mean, you're talking late 30s and 1940s, and it's already 2026. So every time she presents with our students and all students, it's truly a gift, and we appreciate that. Tomorrow, there'll be a renowned guest composer and arranger named Carl Stroman, who'll be visiting Boston to work with band students. So that's a very exciting opportunity. Tri-M has their talent show on Thursday also at RMS at 7 o'clock. Friday is our Showcase of the Arts at the high school, starting at 5:30. And then when we return from the spring break on the 14th, during the day we have two students, high school students, Daniel Ehlers and Abra Madhir. They're being honored as contest winners by Toshiba USA. They did a project on the thymus-like grid for training specialized T cells. And so, just a credit to our students and certainly the staff that work with them, as whether it's the sciences or across the other disciplines. We have students involved in so many various competition areas. As always, we thank all of our local organizations, PTA, SEPTA, ORBA, which are our music and arts boosters, our athletic boosters, Rotary and Civics, for all that they do for our students, staff, and community. And we hope everyone enjoys a nice Easter and Passover.
Thank you. Our Board of Ed committee reports. We have the Bullying Prevention Task Force, Ms. DiLorenzo and Ms. Parisi.
We had our meeting March 11th, 2 weeks ago, and a lot of what you heard tonight from Mr. Salamone from LICAB is what we talked about. He was there. The initiatives that they have with the student ambassadors, wonderful initiative. And he talked about that they went to John Pearl, some upcoming things that they're doing. They're going to Cherokee March 31st and April 1st, and then Idlehour April 23rd. Doing Cherokee 2 days because it's so big, and so they have that coming up. Also, screenagers. I know Dr. C mentioned screenagers, and I went, and it really was very informative. It's kind of amazing, but these kids with the devices, and really got to watch what they're doing. It's very tough, but it's what's happening. So I thought it was great, a lot of success, and thank you to all the parents that came out because it was really an oddly snowy night. The weather was not great, and thank you to Yes, of course, for that event. They're always part of our mental health initiatives and events, and they provided popcorn and some fun activities, and La Supreme provided pizza for everybody that night. So that was really great, and I think that's it for that committee.
All right, thank you. We have the Technology Advisory Committee. That's myself and Ms. Terragrosa. Do you want to go, or?
You can remind me if I forget anything. We went over, unfortunately, as we just saw, the world is expensive and the money is not never ending. So we did have a lot of ideas and things to expand Wi-Fi and cell tower, and among other things. Unfortunately, a lot of those are going to need to take a back seat for a little while. Just the cost component is obscene, like more than I could have ever guessed. We did make some district-wide changes to the Wi-Fi because that has been a pretty consistent point of contention between staff, students, and public. It is more secure, and hopefully with some of these changes you are able to, especially I know for anybody, I think it was like staff, students, anybody who's consistently in the building, not have to like re-authenticate consistently. Every time you log in, you think you're on Wi-Fi, and then like plot twist, you haven't had service for 7 hours. So there was some fixes we could make that did not cost millions and millions of dollars that our technology department has worked very hard on getting in place. Also for protection of data and privacy and making it more secure. Am I forgetting anything?
They talked about looking at replacing some of the Chromebooks for the students, but also, again, at an astronomical price tag. So they are prioritizing which Chromebooks need to be replaced over those that do not need to be replaced right now, this minute. Like Melissa said, they are, there's a new Wi-Fi that you have to log into. There are instructions, so I believe they were emailed to staff and students. There's a caveat though, like apparently it won't work for an hour until after you've entered the building for the first time, so you can authenticate it. So just take that into consideration for the staff and students that are trying to authenticate the new Wi-Fi. I think that was it, right? Okay.
Great, actually, and I do want to shout out quick to our director of technology among her staff. They have really done like ad nauseum research on cost of like the things like the Chromebooks and the features and what the kids, they've heard feedback wise, what do they want, what would be best for certain types of classes, like if they flip the screens flip backwards for those art and math things, like it's not just like we need to replace the Chromebooks, we should just look at this one and that's it. Like we were presented with 5 different options that they've looked at and what they found to be good, bad, and different. So it's not as simple as it sounds, and this is also coming because it's every 5 years. It's not just because they feel like replacing the Chromebooks. They do have what I will call a shelf life, essentially. So it's not really something that we're just looking to expend money on for fun. It's a necessity at the end of the day.
Yes. So the curriculum committee, that was myself and Miss Ainatelli. Do you want to?
I'll just be quick because I left all my notes at home due to the fact that this budget has consumed my mind. But our director, Stephanie Burns, was a guest speaker. She is the director of our science program. She came to go through which programs and curriculum we have already in place that encompass the new requirements being passed down by the Board of Regents for the Portrait of a Graduate. I was pleasantly surprised to see the things that we were doing already in the elementary school level that can, go towards the requirements that are needed. And, obviously we have our science and all the other things that are on the high school level, but the elementary was the most surprising to me.
What she said. So that's exactly what we covered. Ms. Burns came and just gave the portrait of a graduate overview of requirements and how we are meeting most, if not all of them already. So that's great. The Disability Committee, Ms. DiLorenzo?
It was actually a very short meeting. It was basically just to finalize the Disabilities Awareness Fair. Just some last minute details of things that we might, things that are still needed for like vendors or food or items. But the fair will be Thursday, it's April 30th. The game begins at 4:30 promptly. And there's the kids performing national anthem at 4:15. So, you want to get there a little bit early, and they're going to be doing the pledge and sign language, which is very nice. About 4:25-ish, they have it all planned out. So that was basically it. The flyer, I think, I don't know if it was put on Parent Square. Is it on Parent Square yet? Not yet? Okay. All right, there is a beautiful flyer out there that's coming your way. So definitely consider going and supporting them. This is the Unified Basketball Games. Kids are fantastic. So definitely consider that. It's Thursday, April 30th at 4:30.
Thank you. Board of Ed topics, we don't have any listed right now, but I do have one that I want to bring up. So there is the mental health run, the 5K run being organized by Ms. Necken over at the high school. It is on Parent Square, so if you guys want to sign up for whoever wants to walk and or run the 5K, it is Sunday, May 3rd at the high school. It's an amazing event. There's a lot of mental health vendors there, and it's an event that I really enjoy. I don't know if anybody has any Board of Ed topics they want to bring up. Okay. I will now open the floor for the second open public comment portion of the agenda. The same rules apply from the first time. Number 1.
There we go. I'm going to continue on. There are serious concerns about board overreach. My phone has not stopped ringing from people, staff looking for help. Trustees appear to be involving themselves in areas such as transportation and union-related matters, areas that fall outside the appropriate role of the Board of Education. This kind of involvement creates the appearance of complete trustee overstepping and undermines proper governance. Consistency and fairness are also critical. Public recognition at board meetings should reflect the entire district, not appear selective or personal. Especially since there were many educators who deserved a shout out and won't receive it, since April picks and chooses who she likes and dislikes about her recognition and is clearly driven by this. When it is selective to her personal bias, it erodes trust and creates division within the community. Finally, there are serious questions regarding legal spending related to the mascot issue. How much taxpayer money has been spent, and why was the matter not allowed to proceed through the proper channels as recommended? Board members specifically pushed for a backdoor deal that now has put the district in direct conflict with the federal government, costing thousands of dollars while also trying to deter taxpayers from making FOIL requests. Really? Look at how Massapequa handled this like champs. They have the same mascot situation, however, they handled it more professionally, with more knowledge. They allowed the issue to move through the appropriate state and federal process rather than taking unnecessary legal action. As a result, no Board of Education members were ever removed, no funding was ever jeopardized, and the district avoided the excessive legal costs that Connecticut did not. The contrast is clear. Connecticut running their own alternate high school would mean paying much higher wages and is not aidable. Also, you would have to pay payroll taxes on those wages. Did anyone think of that? You guys seem to just keep going in circles and getting nowhere. This community deserves transparency, accountability, and responsible financial stewardship. Right now, there are too many unanswered questions and not enough clarity. It's very sad to see you want to take money in programs from the laborers and the kids before looking more thoroughly at the budget. You say you went line by line, and I still see that it can be tightened on every line and be an actual budget. Actual spent budget like was done several years ago when Eileen Panico was on the school board with Mylene, and the two of them cut line by line. They found over $1 million in the budget. All I hear is constant campaigning lately, specifically by April. Thank you, Jackie D, for coming to these board meetings and focusing on students and not whether you will campaign or not. I urge the board to refocus on its core responsibility, serving students in the community with integrity, sound judgment, and fiscal responsibility. On a good note, I just want to say that at the high school, there's a program that I told you about. It is the mock trials. They did an exceptional job this year. They brought it back. Many years ago, they had it. The advisor was exceptional. They did a great job. And I'm looking forward to hearing that they're going to have a class next year, and I hope that's not one that's on the chopping block.
Thank you. I actually would have liked to have gone to see the mock trials. I love the mock trials. If they have it again, I'd love to get an invitation. Number 2. Right. Can I call for a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Have a good night, everybody. Happy Easter, happy Passover, happy whatever you celebrate. Just be happy.